Oh, we got comments popping up. Okay, so we have we have a couple topics that we're gonna go through, and we're gonna see kind of where this goes. So Tony, our brand ambassador, is just stopped in because he is our expert on everything that is brand related. Because we don't know nothing about what expensive stuff, and so he tells us all about that, and he tells us about what's going on in the media. So Tony, do you are thank you for joining us. We're gonna give it over to you for a minute so you can tell us what's going on out in the Hollywood of things. And what's the breaking news in Hollywood?
Well, basically, what's been happening is that Barry Jenkins he released a 52-minute visual essay, "The Gaze," and the video was Jenkins' attempt to inspire conversations about the simple acting of looking from a black person's perspective. It was also a repudiation of recurring questions from journalists about the white gaze. Basically, black artists are starting to react to questions that are coming their way when they're getting interviewed. And here are a couple of the questions that may pop up and that may irritate people of color that are artists and in the entertainment industry. One is like, when will you start to tell stories that have nothing to do with race or blackness? It's a constructive dialogue about race in America, and society doesn't happen often, but largely because discussing racism is always so difficult. These avenues of discussion require the confrontation of ugly truths about the nation's history, and as well as the others' own. Um, what is unavoidable is blackness, black skin. It has many shades: black hair, intelligence, culture, sexuality, femininity, and masculinity has been politicized since the first black people were kidnapped from the shores of Africa and brought to the Americas. Centuries later, it still seems that blackness remains politically charged. And basically, what is also being said is that it should come as no surprise that many black filmmakers choose to incorporate racial themes into their storytelling. Still, journalists always want to dig into that rather obvious point. There was an expert, which I don't have the video for, but we will see it at some point. Toni Morrison was interviewed by Charlie Rose, and he asked her if she could imagine writing a novel that's not centered about race. Her elaboration is all you would need to know to tell you about why it's best to avoid this question. She simply states this: yes, I can write about white people, and white people can write about black people. Also, in art, there are no boundaries. So having to prove that she can do it she thought it was rather insulting and embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, it's kind of implied that, if you're not writing about race or about white people, that's what you need to be doing. In order for it to be real writing, if it doesn't involve, your characters interacting with white people, then your writing is perceived to be not legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
And then also another question is, why can't black filmmakers make a certain type of film? It usually comes from various genres. Black filmmakers do not have a long history of fantasy, science fiction, horror, or other things. The thing that There was a movie that was released in 1973, and it was Tales from the Hood, and it was a subversive breath of fresh air in 1995. And as you know, in the recent years, with the uprise of filmmakers like Jordan Peele, Ryan Coogler, they've changed the game even further, if you will. And then over the years, there's been it's been a bizarre, at times unconscious, assumption that black filmmakers are incapable of making the great movies when they are straight dramas or comedy. So even now, when black direction and cast goes beyond the limitations, it performs well at the box office, and it's followed by industry shock and awe, which is sad in 2021. It would seem incongruous that the same race of people responsible for the music and dance styles that dominate popular culture, who come from the tradition of the griot producing great literary works, would somehow have limited imaginations on their storytelling abilities. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's a question that you might ask instead. Why are the industrial forces that might be getting in the way of making an invented a space opera with a predominantly black cast, or why fantastical bewitching Fellini-inspired script with a black cast or director is collecting dust in some studio executive's office. Asked why none of the movies or novels of celebrated African American science fiction fantasy author Octavia Butler have never made it to the big or the small screen. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then they always want to know, what's it like being a black man or woman in a certain role today? Uh, what's it like? I mean, a lot of times that question comes up often, and it seems defensible against the backdrop of an industry contending with the racial reckoning. It's also very short sighted, if you will. Black artists have been vocal about wanting to be seen as artists first, from what I understand, and with their skill and talent given the opportunity to speak for them, not the color of their skin or their gender.
Mm.
It's like, basically, how can a black actor play James? If a black actor wanted to play James Bond, because James Bond is a hugely coveted, iconic, and beloved character that makes audiences. He takes them on a journey without any racial implications that might come off with the color of their skin.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like with writers and directions, would they consider this if the person was white? Would they ask them, you can't play James Bond because you're white? That's always a question that's thrown to someone of color when they want
Right.
to take the role of someone that's, not, that's white.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and kind of lastly, to wrap this up, is that black talent should answer all the big questions. You have to try to understand the appropriate avenues of conversation and not look at your black subject as an excuse to parse black culture in a broader sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just want to say, in closing, Issa Rae summed this up best earlier this year during a conversation hosted by LinkedIn, where she said, "Some of us can get frustrated. Any minority, when you're just like I feel, have to learn so much about your culture and you. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily ask you questions. What she says is she does the research. And so for me, she's just hoping that you do your research before you come to me, because she was exhausted. And she doesn't want to have to spend a lot of time going down the list of everything that's wrong. But she's saying that you should basically research everything on your own before you come to a black person and ask them, or a black artist, a question, and you don't have any background to substantiate it.
Mm-hmm.
And my question to everybody is: do you think it's fair for the media to ask questions that relate to an artist's skin color rather than their craft and their body of work? And you, as artists, have you ever encountered this, and how did it make you feel?
I'll take a stab at it. First of all, thank you for that, because that's it's I've seen that pop. I've seen that coming through the last couple years, and I'll keep it real brief. Two things I could think of. One is the James Bond and Idris Elba conversation, and how the Pilgrims got really, really, really upset because at their heralded icon possibly being played by a black person. And then most recently, Michael B. Jordan had to shut down some rumors of him possibly being the first black Superman. And he came out and was like, "That no, that's not it. If it is going to happen, it's not going to be me." And I feel like that speaks to the the narrative that still to this day, no matter how wonderful actor we are, matter how much you're celebrated in Hollywood, whether it's Black Hollywood, White Hollywood, or both, some people are just really not ready to see their icons, in black and black skin, and it's weird.
I'd say that too, 100%.
Well, it's also crazy because the money game is, you know, even if we sat and said, because the audience will always say, well, the black audience will always say, well, why don't we do it ourselves? Well, when we try to distribute, on the budgets that we can afford and through the portals that we have, they either support it as long as they can, or they try to bootleg it, and it's like, we can't make money if you bootlegging and trying to find ways around paying for it. That's why we got to go through the bigger portals that are already protected, because if we could do this show without being on someone else's portal, we probably would. But would they find us? Would they tune in every week, and would they be there? So there's a push and pull of people saying that they want it, and we don't get it or we don't have it. But then when it comes to them supporting it and being consistent with it, it's like when nightclubs open up and close in LA. I mean, it's hot for about 6 months, maybe a year. After that, people go, man, I don't even go there no more. It's that's old. You know, it's old in a year. In a year, you know. So now the shelf life of anything is so short that, you know, a lot of, just like the Toni Morrison interview, I saw it, you know, but you know, the other people are still going to ask the question because, you know, it doesn't get referred to the same way, or it takes someone else standing up for themselves like she did in the interview. Like Kwame Brown right now, for example, is standing up for himself, you know, but it's the hot ticket. It's going to increase his YouTube viewership and things like that. But next year, somebody be like, that's old news. They're on to the next thing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. And I guess, and also too, I feel like it's a double-edged sword because, you know, like a lot of an actor's motivation is to further or to open doors for people up their race.
Right.
And so then to get in an interview, and I do understand Tony made a great point. It's where's the balance? Where's the balance? Like, I don't want, like, don't, like, there's a correct way to do, a politically correct way to do some things.
Right.
And then there's a way that comes across as if you're trying to be denigrating. And it's a savvy little dance that you have to do. And I think some people do it well, but I agree with him. Like, where do we slice? Like, it's a double-edged sword. It's like if I come on, you ask me about the role in the movie, and you don't ask me about race, and then I go on and be like, well, you know what I'm saying, coming at it from a black perspective, then now it's like, well, we didn't actually about race, you brought race. Or when God, I always mess this guy's name up. The guy he just won the award for the Judas and the Black Messiah. And he's British.
Yeah.
So, and they were asking different actors in that movie about their approach to the movie, and if they had to do additional research because they're not American blacks. And it was just like, and it's just like, it's so many layers to that without going into their conversation. It's so many layers to that. And I just don't know. I really don't know if you're going to ever be able to avoid that. Because like Tony said, we've always seen white people in Hollywood. And so now you start to see actors of African descent, African American actors, Black British actors playing these major roles, and then, you know, that conversation is gonna come up. It's gonna come up, and I don't know if you can avoid it. I feel like it's unfortunate, but once again, we have to just be above excellent and learn how to navigate those questions like Morrison did, and bring them back around to avoid looking a certain type of way. Sorry, I'm trying to help you out. Anything?
Yeah, I think that everyone should have a right to choose what kind of artist they want to be and what their art is. I don't think that it should be expected that as a Black actress that I have to do something for my people, that I have to be a part of Black productions. If I cross over, or if I'm winning in the mainstream era, that I'm like, now I'm a sellout, or, you know, I just think that people need to be free to do whatever they want to do and be respected for their art, not question about their intentions. If you're passionate about something, I feel like you as an artist, like especially with Toni Morrison, that interview in particular, she was passionate about creating Black stories that resonated with her and her people. That's her lane. You know what I'm saying? I don't think you could segment that from who she is. I think that that's the kind of person that she is. And when you question that, I really think that's really disrespectful, because we're talking about what motivates us. You know what I mean? It's like, it's a very personal question. And I love that video. I could watch it 1,000 times because I love that look on that woman's face when she responds.
Right.
But, you know, I just think that, I mean, I've been here for about 15 years and I've seen things change drastically. Although I've heard people say, hey, the things that happened, they've happened all over again. And even this whole wave of all Black folks getting on shows and getting all this attention, this has already happened before. You know what I mean? So it's like, there's a point where everything's kind of going to go back to normal. Oscars will be, you know, we'll do a hard reset and they'll probably forget about some people, and we'll be trying to figure it out. in the future. But my advice to anyone that wants to do this, I just say, just be true to yourself. It's hard enough trying to get these gigs, trying to live on, in LA and get these jobs than to put that extra weight on you. So whatever motivates you, I feel like stay true to yourself and stay in that lane.
And I wanted to say that Toni Morrison interview is a good lesson in class and dignity and when they try to get you with a gotcha question, because if she had gone off like the typical Black woman and just, and try to let him have it instead of just kind of being calm and just saying to him, and I say typical. Now I know a lot of not so typical Black women.
Like from
I just knew Cecily was going.
Well, you saw me do this. I mean, that lets you know if you ain't a head wagger,
Okay. It was unspoken.
It's that's the way to handle that, because I mean, an interviewer typically is their job to get you in those gotcha moments. I mean, you're doing you what do you call this? What do you call this? Ambush. Come on, I mean, that makes for the best entertainment.
That is true. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you just got to be ready and you got to be poised and you got to have some class about yourself.
Hey, y'all heard it from a great himself. Don't let them set you up for failure. Keep it together and dance the dance, dodge the questions, answer what you want to answer, don't answer what you don't want to, and make it through that interview alive to shine another day.